first Governor General of this country, Louise Arbour. You're looking live there in downtown Ottawa at the temporary home of the Canadian Senate. That is where the ceremony is set to take place in just about 30 minutes' time. We are awaiting any moment now the arrival of the Prime Minister and his wife, Diana Fox-Carney. And in fact, there they are. There is Prime Minister Mark Carney greeting the usher of the Black Rod, as well as Diana Fox-Carney, his wife. They are going to make their way slowly into the Senate chamber, and then they will be among the dignitaries who gather for the actual installation of Louise Arbour. Madame Arbour just actually made her way outside of Rideau Hall, the residence of the Governor General. So too did her predecessor, Mary Simon, Governor General Mary Simon. And here is Louise Arbour making her way there out of Rideau Hall, about to enter the car that will take her just a number of blocks away to the Senate of Canada. She will join the Prime Minister there, as well as current Governor General Mary Simon and a host of other dignitaries for that ceremony. We have coverage of the ceremony live. The whole thing, of course, will take you through that and all of the arrivals, as well as coverage outside, inside, and a number of people who can give us insight on the significance of this moment, not just here in Ottawa, not just for the federal government, but for all Canadians from coast to coast to coast. I am your host for this morning, Vassy Kapelos, live to you here in downtown Ottawa, just a few feet away from where that ceremony will take place. Some of my colleagues, as I mentioned, are there as well, including Annie Bergeron-Oliver, who's just outside the doors of the Senate, where a number of the features for this program are currently being set up. Hi, Annie. Good to see you. Tell me a little bit about what is happening behind you and what is set to be happening.
Hi, Vassy. Well, it's been a busy morning with dignitaries arriving. We've seen Joe Clark, the former Prime Minister, arrive already. Adrian Clarkson, the former Governor General, as well as a number of Supreme Court justices. So this is the red carpet where everyone is going to be arriving. As you pointed out, the Prime Minister is going to be one of the first processions to go in. The Governor General designate will be among the second processions. There's also a drum circle set up. This will be by the Eagle River Singers. It's a group of Algonquin men who will be drumming a traditional song. They are also accompanied by two dancers. You can see that they're all set up getting ready to go. It's going to be a very busy day, but luckily here in Ottawa, it is beautiful sunny weather. As you know, the big part here is at the Senate. This is where we're going to get the speech from Louise Arbour, which will really give us some more insight into her view for this role, kind of the things that she wants to champion. But also after this, she will then walk over to the cenotaph, which is only a couple blocks, but on this beautiful day, it'll be a nice walk for her to walk over to that cenotaph, to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier with some family members of hers, a chance to see some of the troops who will be there that she will be inspecting as well. You can also see that the Governor General's foot guard is here. They're standing alongside the red carpet. So this is going to be a beautiful ceremony filled with pomp and circumstance. And it's also important to note that the last time we did this was during COVID. So there were a lot of restrictions when Mary Simon was installed as Governor General. So this will have a lot more people, much fewer restrictions, and a different vibe. But again, a lot of pomp and circumstance, and it's definitely starting to get underway already, Vassy.
Yeah, a good point, Annie. Thanks so much. A whole 5 years has passed since then, and it was, to Annie's point, a very different ceremony, the installation of Governor General Mary Simon. Everybody was in mask. There were very few people there. We do expect the chamber of the Senate to be packed. Annie mentioned some of the dignitaries who are in attendance. We saw the arrival there of Supreme Court Justice Richard Wagner, the Prime Minister. We're anticipating others will arrive momentarily as well. Let's head inside the chamber of the Senate, where my colleague Michael Couture joins us live right now. Mike, you've had eyes on everyone arriving. Tell me a little bit about the mood ahead of this ceremony and what people are telling you about the significance of it to them.
Yeah, a lot of people excited in here, Vassy, because, of course, as Annie had mentioned, one of the installations that now more people can be at, talking to a number of senators going in. They were here early to make sure that they were getting their spot and making sure that they had a good spot for this ceremony. Also had a chance to speak with Jeremy Hansen, of course, astronaut from Artemis II, and he's excited to hear from Louise Arbour and exactly what she says in her speech, and really laying laying out what she wants as she will be taking over this very significant position. We also had a procession of the lieutenant governors from a number of different provinces. A number of them are here. A number of ministers have also gone inside as well. And certainly there is that anticipation for somebody with the esteem as Louise Arbour and seeing what she will say in her first speech as Governor General and what she will lay out as what a course that she wants to really plot for herself in this role. So certainly we expect it to get a lot busier in the next couple of moments. We saw former Prime Minister Joe Clark go inside and we're expecting the other former Governors General such as Adrienne Clarkson and David Johnston to be here as well. So a lot of anticipation inside as I stand here beside the red carpet, Vassy.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. And as you can see right now on the screen ahead of you, there is Governor General Mary Simon, the 30th Governor General of this country, greeting Prime Minister Mark Carney and Diana Fox. Carney next to Mary Simon, her husband, Whit Fraser. She will play a big part in most of this ceremony as well. It's sort of like almost a transfer of power. There's a lot of different things to show that transfer throughout this ceremony. This is the last kind of official act of the Governor General, who was engaged, I should say, in public events and ceremonies right up until last night. Right after the arrival of Governor General Mary Simon, we do anticipate the incoming Governor General, the Governor General designate Louise Arbour, as you saw a few moments ago, left Rideau Hall, so she'll be next to arrive. I am joined here on set for the duration of these arrivals and right through the ceremony by two wonderful colleagues. Graham Richardson is our Ottawa Bureau Chief, and Perry Bellegarde, former National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations and advisor at FASCN, are both with me for this. Great to have you both here. I appreciate it. Perry, as we watch the arrivals of the former Governor General, the Prime Minister, you know, Canadians will, I think, be familiar with the role of the Governor General, but you're always great at sort of describing why it's such a significant role. This is the King's representative in this country, right?
This is the King's representative. Canada is a constitutional monarchy, and the Governor General represents the King here in Canada. So this is a very important day. And for us as First Nations people, we say we have a relationship with the Crown. We have a treaty relationship with the Crown. We don't have a treaty with the Liberals or the NDP or the Greens or the Conservatives. It's a treaty relationship with the Crown. And so for us, this is very, very important. And I think there is, with Louise Arbour being chosen, it's just a great way to keep that relationship intact, but as well keep our country. Canada's the greatest country in the world. In spite of all the challenges we're facing now, you know, in terms of the unity challenges and everything else, it's just a fantastic choice.
Perry's note there around unity, Graham, kind of adds a special, I don't know if flavor is the right word, certain color, certain context to today weight. That feels very significant, right? We're at a sort of inflection point when it comes to that issue of unity, both on the West and to a certain degree in Quebec as well. Madame Arbour is a francophone. That was certainly part of the process, you know, part of what the Prime Minister wanted to highlight. We understand with her selection. Talk a little bit, if you could, about how you see the significance of today.
So, first of all, First Nations prominence is tremendous and wonderful to see. I'm reminded of the Prime Minister's speech when he appointed her or announced her, talking about while others turn away from institutions, Canada's role is to build them and to strengthen them. I think that was not a very subtle reference to the United States. I think that's fair. The other thing I'm thinking about is the simplicity of the role. Her job is to bring Canadians together. To Perry's point, whether it's treaty rights, whether it's the question in Alberta and the question in Quebec, without getting into politics, it is bringing us together.
And here is the incoming Governor General waving to the crowd, getting a round of applause from everybody, including Governor General Mary Simon. There's some of the people in Ottawa here who have assembled outside. There's Whit Fraser, the Governor General Mary Simon's husband, I should say, the Prime Minister, Diana Fox Carney, the usher of the Black Rod, Louise Arbour shaking everybody's hand as she makes her way inside. These are the dignitaries who kind of officially arrive prior to the ceremony. They will then make their way inside. The ceremony unfolds. There's a number of different presentations during that ceremony, and we will hear from the incoming Governor General herself. Madame Arbour will deliver a speech, as will Prime Minister Carney. Can we talk a little bit about Perry, Louise Arbour herself? I mean, I think we can pull up as soon as she's made her way in a graphic of some of the career highlights, but what a career it's been.
Oh, it's phenomenal. The Supreme Court of Canada Justice. She was a High Commissioner at the United Nations on Human Rights. She oversaw the study at Kingston for women that were in prison there. And all of those things are high level. She promoted justice and fundamental human rights globally. And I think she's going to have a great opportunity here in Canada to keep doing that job. And I'm excited. You know, she's just a perfect choice for that position. And as Graham said, like, one of her main tasks or jobs is to convene and bring Canadians together from all sectors, all parts of this land, and have those difficult conversations, because we have some very challenging issues to deal with here in Canada. But I think she can bring people together to make sure we continue to build this great country, to make it better for our children and grandchildren. That's what I see.
We'll get some more perspective on the selection of Madame Arbour and the ceremony now inside the Senate, where our Mike Couture, as we await and watch what's happening outside, is joined by former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. Mike, over to you.
Thanks so much for that, Vassy. Yes, former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, thank you very much for joining us here. You did appoint Madame Arbour to the Supreme Court. So tell me what makes her the right choice as Governor General.
She's a very important, competent person. She came from Quebec, moved to Ontario, had a career in law. I had the privilege to name her to the Supreme Court of Canada, and there was only applause. She stayed there not that long because she had a career internationally that was fabulous, and she's the perfect choice for the occasion.
When you think about governors general, they always have a specific interest in something they want to move forward as well. What do you expect from Madame Arbour?
She will be very much interested normally with human rights. She was a great international specialist about that, and there is some debate about that these days. It's less a preoccupation than it was, but it's a constant problem. When you start to fool around with the rights of citizens, you're heading for a very difficult road for the future. And she is extremely knowledgeable, and she was used internationally to solve problems of that nature. Normally, I think that she will be very interested by that.
One of the roles of the Governor General is also to maintain unity in this country. At this moment in time in our country, how important is that?
But she gave the example of what it is to be a good Canadian. She's a great example, and she's known internationally. And I'm very pleased that she is named, she is known internationally. And it's the same occasion when there's a lot of turmoil in the world. We have a Prime Minister that made a career internationally too. So for the people around the globe will be impressed by the quality of people that we produce in Canada.
To that end, you were the Prime Minister during the last referendum that we had in this country. I wanted to know if you have any advice for the current Prime Minister as he faces a possible referendum in Alberta.
You know, it's not a real referendum. To have a referendum in Canada, you need a question that is approved by the Parliament of Canada. This is the law of the land. It's the bill I passed when I was Prime Minister, called the bill sur la clarté. So if you don't respect the law, you can have a referendum of anything. You can have a referendum tomorrow to know if the moon is square. And people would say no. You know, you can consult people. The problem is, what is the legal effect of what they're doing?
Yeah.
And it's just a consultation. And even her, yesterday, I guess, she asked the people of Alberta to vote for Canada. And the leader of the opposition is the same view. So I'm not too worried, but we should never be complacent.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chrétien. Former
pleasure.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. It was former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. Vassy?
Thanks so much, Mike Couture. Mike Couture inside the Senate. We're going to head back outside where a ceremony is taking place. We're going to hear very shortly from the Eagle River Singers. There's going to be a drum circle performance. You can see the Prime Minister, incoming and outgoing Governors General have assembled there. And we're also going to listen in live to that performance, as well as comments from a number of nearby chiefs. Let's take a listen. All right, that's the Eagle River Singers, a traditional drum group that consists of a number of Algonquin men from various communities nearby. I'm here with Perry Bellegarde and Graham Richardson as we watch the Prime Minister alongside the current Governor General Mary Simon and their spouses make their way inside. They'll be greeted by a number of different, as you can see, sort of ceremonies into themselves, some of them to recognize the various roles the Governor General perform, including Commander-in-Chief, of course. So there's a military component to all of this. Perry, talk, if you could, a little bit about, we were just talking about the significance of the role when it comes to First Nations, but of course, a big part, and this isn't the only part of the ceremony that will reflect the significance of the relationship between the Crown and First Nations, but some of it already very much pointing to that.
No question. You can see the drum group, of course. We always say the drum's the heartbeat of Mother Earth. You have the Algonquin singers. You see the Algonquin leadership here, Chief of Pikwakanagan, Grand Chief Paulson from the Algonquins. You see them that were part of the original piece there. But as you come in, you're going to see not only First Nations represented through ceremony, you're going to see the Inuit people with the lighting of the kulik, and then as well the Métis people through song and dance as well. So it's very inclusive now, and then from our perspective, you can't have Canada without recognition of Indigenous peoples, right? And so you see that reflected now, and it was always about peaceful coexistence and mutual respect to share the land and resource wealth together, and so it's really nice to see that. And you can see former Governor General Mary Simon there as well, Her Excellency. And
I should note, the first Indigenous person to occupy the role.
And she was bilingual, you know, speaking Inuktitut and English, and then she tried very hard to learn French, and so we should lift her up for that. And I would encourage all Governor Generals that speak English and French to start learning Indigenous languages as well. There's 70 different Indigenous nations languages in Canada, so it's very powerful. So we can see that reflected here.
We see the leaders here, for example, Nat Noba, the leader of the ITA, like a number of Indigenous leaders are part of the procession.
President Pruden.
The president of the Métis
National Council,
Yes. A number of them very prominent parts of the sort of dignitaries that greet Graham, the Governor General, as she makes her way in. Now, there's something very interesting that's going to happen in advance of the ceremony. There's essentially a seal, you know, that goes on things to proclaim that the government has endorsed, for example, a proclamation, or it's essentially the seal of our country. And that is going to be something that now changes to reflect the fact that the monarch has changed from the Queen to King Charles. That's going to actually be the last official thing that we watch Governor General Mary Simon do as she exits the role and Louise Arbour takes over.
The Great Seal of Canada will look different now, of course, because of the King. So what's interesting, it's fascinating listening to Perry talk about it. You know, I mean, in years past, in ceremonies past, we probably have a much more British or European feel. Maybe some classical music that's a little quieter coming in. And it hasn't been that long in ceremonies like this. A full embrace of First Nation, Métis, Inuit culture. And if we accept, which we all must, the role of bringing us together, whether that's the various questions out there in the country for legislatures, but also for First Nations, I think it's really important to reflect back to the country at times like this, what this role is about. And what's wonderful, I think, about this election and about her is that she's not stuffy. She's dealt with real issues. She's brought a dictator to justice. She has dealt with P4W. She has dealt with things with individual rights, as Mr. Chrétien said. By the way, making news there, talking about the Alberta.
Not a real referendum.
Not a real referendum.
And also was the person who appointed Louise Arbour, as Mike pointed out, to the Supreme Court.
Exactly. So I just think there are very interesting things going on here for me as well. Vassy is a student of politics of the country that I think tells a broader story than just the King's representative in Canada.
And we're going to listen in live now as that ceremony takes place.
Je confie maintenant à votre garde le grand sceau du Canada pour sa mise au service. I now entrust you with the Great Seal of Canada of Queen Elizabeth II for decommissioning.
Would the Governor General now be pleased to entrust the new Great Seal of Canada, approved by His Majesty King Charles III, to the representative of the Registrar General of Canada? Son Excellence la gouverneure générale consentait
Her Excellency the Governor General has now conferred the new Great Seal of Canada, approved by His Majesty King Charles III, to the representative of the Registrar General of Canada.
Je vous confie le garde de Grand Sceau de Canada.
I hereby entrust to you the Great Seal of Canada.
Of the Great Seal of Canada.
I didn't know we had thrones of Canada to sit on thrones of Canada.
So, process of the Great Seal of Canada being decommissioned and then commissioned to reflect the change in the monarch from the Queen to King Charles. This is essentially, the Great Seal is basically what signifies the authority of the crown, which of course flows from the king in this case to our parliamentary government. And it's used on everything from when a lieutenant governor is appointed to when a judge is appointed, all sorts of things that essentially need what's known as a royal proclamation. So it's one of kind of the oldest symbols and instruments of our government in just that. The mark of the seal, I will say, is what we are told combines the notions of authenticity, authority, and the will of the crown while conferring a certain prestige to whatever document it ends up being applied to. And with that, Mary Simon becomes officially the former Governor General. And we will await any moment now, the beginning of the ceremony, to install Louise Arbour as the current Governor General, the 31st Governor General. I want to bring in someone who is an expert actually on this entire process and the history of the role itself. John Fraser is a Canadian journalist and author of The Governors General, An Intimate History of Canada's Highest Office. And John is with us live right now. Hello there, very, very great to see you. Thank you very much for making the time. I appreciate it.
Nice to be here with you, sort of. I'm in Toronto.
For some, yeah, in spirit. You're watching this, I'm sure, just like the rest of us. As you see all of the ceremony associated with this, what is the significance of what takes place today from where you sit?
Significance to me is the continuation of the oldest office in the Canadian story. This goes back to 1620. The first governor was Samuel Champlain, and before that, of course, there's a whole sequence of chiefs of First Nations, but there has never been a time when there's been human beings on the country that is Canada today that there haven't been leadership. And today we're seeing it renewed, and it's great. I don't think a lot of Canadians actually understand their own system that well. We don't do civics that well in this country, but this is nevertheless, we're looking at the apex of the Canadian constitutional system being renewed here, and it's exciting. And I think these days means a lot more to a lot of Canadians because of some of the pressures that have been put on this country from south of the border and from all sorts of other issues internally and externally. So this is an important moment.
Who, as you mentioned, may not be as clear on the role of the Governor General. How would you best describe from where you sit, like what the Governor General does and why it's important?
Well, a historian a few decades ago described the Governor General as like a fire extinguisher. It's beautifully arrayed, colorful, very red, put in the corner, and only brought out in emergencies. The actual power of a Governor General is to make sure that there's always a government functioning in this country, or if there isn't a government, to make sure one is about to be elected. And so it's in times of crises that a Governor General comes to the fore. For the rest, the Governor General is in charge of our executive and making sure that Canadians feel good about themselves. She is the font honors. She's the person who gives out the Orders of Canada, the special awards for courage to our armed forces. She's also someone who, in her person, as the representative of the sovereign, should be able to speak up for Canadians all across the country, and for all kinds of Canadians. And we need people like that. That we need coherent voices that bring us together. And we've had some great Governor Generals who've done that.
When you look back at the succession of governors generals, as I said, your book essentially examines and gets into the history of the role and the people who have occupied the office. How has it, like, if you could identify how it's evolved, how it's different now than it was, for example, in the 50s when the first Canadian was able to assume the role, like, how has it evolved from where you sit?
It evolves in the personalities of the Governors General, the first Canadian ones. Before that, we had British grandees, many of whom did an excellent job. But since the first one in '52, which was Mr. Massey, Vincent Massey, it has progressed into being not necessarily the people at the top of the diplomatic world. It moved for a period of time into top politicians, which was not very successful. And then Jean Chrétien appointed Adrienne Clarkson, sort of a top journalist. I could say that, yay journalism. But she was a brilliant Governor General. and before, in the older times with Canadians, there was General Vanier, the first French-Canadian Governor General, and he was a brilliant Governor General too. And they in both cases spoke for the country quite extraordinarily well, I would say.
So the incoming Governor General, Louise Arbour, is going to give a speech today, and so is the Prime Minister, and we'll learn more about, through that speech, what she intends to do with the role. But when you, John, heard the name, heard who was being selected for the role, what do you think of? How do you think she will inform what this version of the Governor General does? Like, what are you thinking about with her selection?
I don't have a clue. We won't know. None of us will know until she actually becomes the Governor General and does it. But because there'd be misapprehensions in the past. Some people were thought to be going to be brilliant and they weren't, and some were thought not to be great and they were great. Louise Arbour is an amazing Canadian, a great Canadian, and we're all proud of her even before she got this job. But this is a job that is on full public display. It's daunting in many ways, even though some people will say, well, it's just the Governor General, they're not elected. Well, they are put in place not just by a sovereign, but named by an elected official and chosen by the Prime Minister. And so they have a connection directly to all Canadians in that sense. But it's a test. We won't know how great Louise Arbour is going to be, and I hope she will be, and I'm pretty sure she will be. But the test is in the pudding. You know, you have to eat it.
Point well taken, John. I'll leave it on that note. Thanks for your analysis and your insights today. I appreciate it very much. John Fraser is a Canadian journalist and author of The Governors General: An Intimate History of Canada's Highest Office. It's must read if you want to understand the nature of the role as much as possible. I'm here with Perry Bellegarde and Graham Richardson. Graham, I'll start with you. I think we do need to talk a little bit about the role itself. It has not been free of controversy, particularly not as much with Mary Simon, not anywhere close to as much, but the previous Governor General, Julie Payette, former astronaut, as well as served in the military, she, ended up exiting the role under, pretty scandalous circumstances, right? An expose that was done at the time on the way in which she treated staff, she interacted with staff. The role faced a lot of scrutiny. Mary Simon came in as the first Indigenous person, did not face criticism outside of the French that Perry mentioned. She did take lessons. She, as she conveyed on our program many times, tried as hard as she could. There is, she still did get pushback, particularly in Quebec, for the fact that the French wasn't better. There seems to be some sort of acknowledgement of the role of French with this selection, but ultimately your take on, like, the role isn't free of scrutiny. That's for sure. Yeah.
And I think, without getting into it with Ms. Payette deeply, and John's book does, I don't think he talked about the public role, and I don't think she was ready for that. I think it's fair to say that Mr. Trudeau wanted a fairly splashy name, who was very high profile, an astronaut. That's a great idea. And I think what John's talking about there is let's just say Miss Arbour is a star in legal communities, in the legal community. This is an entirely different role, right? It is a public role. You know, I didn't pay much attention to it until I was covering Harper, and he almost lost the government to the coalition. And what's going to happen here? Oh, we're actually going to engage the Governor General. Maybe it didn't get to that. It didn't get to that. But it was kind of a wake-up call.
But I remember even then people saying, "What's she going to do? What if she doesn't?" You know, like it was key at the time.
Very, very serious. So someone like this. In that role, probably will be able to handle things very, very well. So, but it is the softer side, but also the ceremonial side. But again, I keep coming back to that bring us together on any front. And I think that's the most important piece of it. Because if you support the country, the Governor General is the top of the country, and people look to her for a unifying role. And I think if Ms. Payette, criticism mild here, would be that she didn't quite fully understand that, maybe, and wasn't ready for that.
I think if I was Prime Minister, I would look to Louise Arbour as a key confidant and somebody with the experience and the background to advise on very complicated constitutional issues. Look at her experience at the Supreme Court of Canada. Look at her experience at the United Nations. I would look to her as an advisor. Like she can prorogue Parliament. She can give royal assent to laws. You know, that's like or not give royal assent to laws. Like so, it's a very key position. People need to understand that. And I agree with Graham. Like one of her key roles in Canada now, with the challenges from the USA and everything else that are happening, Canada is a sovereign nation, sovereign state, and having the ability to convene people is so powerful. And I think she's going to be able to do that in a very effective way to keep our great country united and to continue to build it. I always say, it's a great country, but how do we make it better, you know, for children and our grandchildren? And that's going to be the challenge going forward, especially you look at British Columbia. There's a key decision, Cowichan decision, you know, fee simple title and rights versus Aboriginal title and rights. I would hope that Louise Arbour continues her great advocacy of fundamental human rights, not only in Canada, but globally, and keep bringing us together for those difficult conversations.
And it will be interesting to see the way in which she does it, because in your capacity as Governor General, it's different than in other roles, right? And we saw that certainly with Mary Simon. She advocated for a host of issues, even from mental health and what goes on in social media. She definitely used the role to weigh in with great purpose on certain issues in a very specific way. So I'm curious to see the way that unfolds with the incoming Governor General, who we are just looking at now. Actually, that's the Prime Minister alongside his wife, Diana Fox-Carney. They're all making their way now inside through the foyer of the Senate into the chamber where the ceremony will take place. Our Mike Couture is inside, I believe, that same foyer now. Mike, I hope we can go to you. You've seen kind of the group of people assembled there. You just spoke to Jean Chrétien, former Prime Minister. Joe Clark, another former Prime Minister, will be in attendance as well. Talk us through some of the other dignitaries that you anticipate will watch this ceremony unfold from inside the chamber.
Yeah, lieutenant governors from a number of provinces already made their way in through a separate procession. And of course, you had in that procession as well there the government representative in the Senate, Pierre Moreau. And of course, when you look in that Senate chamber right now, it is packed, a number of senators as well. You know, this is such an important moment in our country's history, in our moment in this country's time right now, because of not only the symbolism, but of course this ceremony that is important in terms of the handing over from Mary Simon to Louise Arbour as the new Governor General, and to see all of them gathered there, and you know, the importance of this and making sure that this is done in this way, but at the same time, Vassy, all of the people that are gathered here, I mean, you know, speaking to Jeremy Hansen from Artemis 2 as well, that gives you an idea of really the broad spectrum of people that are here to see this and to take witness of this as well, and the importance of this moment as well, Vassy.
And we're going to listen in live now as the ceremony officially gets underway. You're listening to the Master of Ceremonies, Kate Binney, who's the Director General at Canadian Heritage. Let's take a listen.
Greg Peters, l'huissier du bâton noir.
Usher of the Black Rod.
La procession se déroulera au sein
The procession will be happening with the musical accompaniment of the Central Canadian Armed Forces Band.
Je vous invite à vous lever, si vous le pouvez,
Please
pour la
stand if you
procession.
can
I
for the
invite you to
procession.
rise, if you're able, for the procession.
Veuillez-vous s'asseoir. Please be seated. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, who have been present on these lands since time immemorial.
Forte d'une formation et d'une expérience professionnelle
Backed
dans le
by
domaine bancaire et
education and a
immobilier,
career in
Lena
banking and
McGregor
real
a
estate,
contribué à
Linda
de nombreux
McGregor has
organismes
contributed to a number
favorisant le
of
développement
agencies
économique autochtone
for
et la lutte
Indigenous
contre la
economic
violence familiale.
development and
Lena McGregor fait la
fighting
promotion de
domestic
la langue
violence.
et de la culture
She promotes
algonquine
Algonquin
comme présidente de l'Institut
language and
culturel
culture as the
algonquin
president
et comme
of
membre
the
d'un groupe de
Algonquin Cultural
grand-mères
Nation,
traditionnelles et
as a
d'aînés.
traditional grandmother
Welcome,
and elder.
McGregor.
Kakina. Hello, everybody. Bonjour à toutes et tous. I'm very honored to be here today, and I'd like to honor our honored guests and the future Governor, Her Excellencies, and the past Excellencies. As Algonquin, we're known as the Omamaninuak, the nomads, and we would meet here in the summer because this area here is so special that we're known for the birch bark canoe. Why we would meet here is at this confluence of the rivers coming together. And it's similar to, if you've been in a lot of our communities, the medicine wheel, where there's many teachings to that, but the biggest meaning is that it represents balance, even individually, your emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental. But it's a reminder too that what connects all of us is that we're connected to the earth, the waters, the fire, and the air. And what I did today too as well is our ancestors were one of the first to meet the newcomers, most notably Samuel de Champlain. And this led to a conflict in the past called the Beaver Wars, which led to this great peace gathering in 1701. And from there they created one of the symbols which we see as covenants, which is this sharing belt of 1701. And it represents the three nations, really, which you had the British Crown, the Anishinaabe in the middle, and the French Crown. So again, it was our understanding it's the sharing of the lands and the caretaking of the lands for future generations too. But they're also called peace belts in terms of how do you weave together different ideologies so we coexist together without destroying each other. And that's the significance of these, and that's why I'm very honored to be here today. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say a little prayer. Part of our protocol too is the offering of tobacco. And again, that was one of our sacred medicines in the medicine wheel. And I may ask you to stand if you can. Nani buene nabigis, s'il vous plaît. Enlevé. I also have my eagle feather, and again, too, the significance of the eagle feather is that it has a higher view, such as leadership. You need a higher view. Gani ganich kakina. So miigwech. Onje ni gashkito ma dose konje no go mama kakina pamad sejectin is wa konje. Mom de gay, we ni gan with chikena bigis. We doka kakina chimino pamad watch chiminoyag. Juana kiwa jena bigis. Miigwech onje kakina gagish and don onje mom de gay in the kimanon. Shkaki question cousin in the kimanon. We doka kakina pamad sejek onje nagadwabdan kakina gujna in the kimanon. Mom de gay nishna be a key. Miigwech onje kakina etek kishagon keys to be keys as a shejanung shuk. We do kwayan no kumis nano jen agdwabdan kakina guj nibi a shej nimashomsen nano jen agdwabdan kakina gujya ishkude. Migwa chonje na sewin kagimi jen chimino pamadsian. We do kwa kakina chipino pamadzwaj mom de gegi akuzajik. We do kwag mom de ge ninjinu in daganak nimashomsen non negokmis non a shej dabano jishak. Mom de gay, ne bashka dagamak kamashe deniswak. Schwenmish no in abigis. We do kwa kakina wesi saka gishandan kakina guch. Ashij we do kwa kakina mom de gay we wisna jik demagas jik akwas a jik. Kaye we me god with jik non gum chiwana kiwaj in abigis. Conscious squat negwede simene. Mia migwach. Miigwech's thank you in Algonquin. Say merci en Algonquin. J'ai dit ça 4 fois. I say it 4 times again to honor the place we're here today, because I find it interesting that Parliament and the leadership, the Senate, is at that confluence of the 4 rivers coming together from the 4 directions, representing that it's a big responsibility to bring in balance for the collective. So, miigwech everybody, merci à tous, and have a wonderful gathering, and congratulations to the future Governor General. Miigwech. Oh, la mother Ben, you may be seated. Asseyez-vous.
Thank you, Elder McGregor, for your wise words. I would now like to take a moment to explain a tradition that was carried out before the ceremony began, the lighting of the kudlik, the traditional Inuit lamp. Made of soapstone, the kudlik burns animal fat and uses Arctic plants as a wick. These lamps are traditionally used in the north to bring light and warmth to homes. Elder Ripa Ivik Carlton is here with us today to tend the kudlik for the duration of the ceremony. She has dedicated decades of her life to supporting community social work in Nunavut, as well as founding a healing center here in Ottawa, which provides a variety of Inuit community support programs. Elder Ivik Carlton, thank you for joining us today.
L'auteure-interprète québécoise Sarah Dufour, accompagnée à la guitare par Paul Théoré,
singer Quebec Sarah Dufour and guitarist Paul Théoré will now play the next piece of music by Jean-François Potvin. It's the story of a woman who dedicates her life to the service of others despite her own challenges. It emphasizes solidarity, resilience, and empathy. Please welcome Sarah Dufour.
N'avait jamais su de quel pays qu'elle venait, ni même l'âge qu'elle avait ou comment qu'elle s'appelait. Mais tout le monde la surnommait la reine, dans le bout de la rue Sainte-Catherine et de la Main. Elle se promenait dans le quartier depuis au moins 10 ans, côtoyant les putains et les itinérants. Mais quand on entendait son accent, on se doutait qu'elle venait pas du lac Saint-Jean. Chaque soir, elle prenait sous son aile les clochards et les junkies de fond de ruelle, comme un ange gardien venu du ciel qui serait atterri dans les poubelles. La nuit avec son pick-up, elle faisait sa tournée, distribuant des toasts et un peu de café pour donner un petit brin de chaleur à ceux qui ont l'hiver drette dans le cœur. Pour les écorchés vifs, elle inspirait la paix. Sa seule présence était comme un baume sur leur plaie. Son regard était une lanterne pour les naufragés des sombres tavernes. Chaque soir, elle prenait sous son aile les clochards et les junkies de fond de ruelle, comme un ange gardien venu du ciel qui serait atterri dans les poubelles. Selon ce que dit Polo, un chauffeur de taxi, elle aurait fui la guerre pour émigrer ici. Il y a de cela une couple de décennies, quand ils ont tué son petit gars puis son mari. Et ce qu'elle aurait trouvé pour s'accrocher à vie, c'est de s'occuper des pauvres et des plus démunis. Au lieu de vivre triste éternellement, elle avait maintenant des centaines d'enfants. Chaque soir, elle prenait sous son aile les clochards et les junkies de fond de ruelle, comme un ange gardien venu du ciel qui serait atterri dans les poubelles. Ça s'est passé hier dans la nuit du 12 au 13. En sortant de son pick-up, a eu comme un malaise. Près de chez elle, au métro du collège, on l'a retrouvée morte dans un banc de neige. On n'aura jamais su de quel pays qu'elle venait, ni même l'âge qu'elle avait ou comment qu'elle s'appelait. Mais ce matin, les gens pleuraient la reine, par le bout de la rue Sainte-Catherine et de la Main. Mais au moins, elle a repris ses ailes pour partir vers un monde un peu moins cruel. Et même si elle croyait pas en Dieu, c'est sûr qu'elle vole quelque part où le ciel est bleu. Et même si elle croyait pas en Dieu, c'est sûr qu'elle vole quelque part où le ciel est bleu.
The position of Governor General has greatly evolved since the Confederation of Canada in 1867. King George VI in 1947 signed letters patent which redefines the powers of the Governor General. Since that time, the Governor General has duly performed the duties of head of state not only in Canada but also abroad. These letters patent also conferred upon the Governor General the role of Commander-in-Chief of Canada. The letters patent require that the commission of this office be read publicly during the swearing-in of a new Governor General.
J'aimerais maintenant inviter le secrétaire du gouverneur général,
like to invite the Secretary General, Ken McKillop, to read the commission signed by His Majesty King Charles III, King of Canada.
Charles III, par la grâce de Dieu,
by the grace of God, King of Canada and other kingdoms and territories, and Chief of the Commonwealth, our faithful friend Louise Arbour. Hello. By our present commission and under our Great Seal of Canada, we appoint you, Louise Arbour, our Governor General and Commander-in-Chief in and over Canada, with all the powers, rights, privileges, and advantages belonging or appertaining to the office. By these presents, we do hereby authorize, empower, and command you as our representative to exercise and perform all the powers and directions contained in the letters of patent under our Great Seal of Canada. Today, on the 8th day of September of the year 1947, constituting the position of Governor General and Commander-in-Chief in Canada, or in any other letters patent, adding to, amending, or substituted for the same. And further, we do hereby appoint and that you shall have taken the prescribed oaths and have entered upon the duties of your office. This, our present commission, shall come into effect. And we do hereby command all and singular, our officers, ministers, and loving subjects in Canada, and all others whom these presents may concern, to take due notice hereof, and to give their ready obedience accordingly. Given under our royal hand and under our Great Seal of Canada, this 22nd day of June of 2026 of
by the grace
our
of
reign.
God, King of Canada and his other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth, to our trusty and well-beloved Louise Arbour. Greetings. We do by this, our present commission under our Great Seal of Canada, appoint you, Louise Arbour, to be, during our pleasure, our Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief, and over Canada with all the powers, rights, privileges, and advantages belonging and appertaining to the office. And we do hereby authorize, empower, and command you, as our representative, to exercise and perform all singular the powers and directions contained in certain letters patent under our Great Seal of Canada, bearing the date 8th day of September in the year of our Lord 1947, constituting the office of the Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief in and over Canada, or in any other letters patent adding to, amending, or substituting for the same. And further, we do hereby appoint that so soon as you shall have taken the prescribed oaths and have entered upon the duties of your office, this, our present commission, shall come into effect. And we do hereby command all and singular our officers, ministers, and loving subjects of Canada, and all others whom these patents may concern, to take due notice hereof, and to give their ready obedience accordingly. Given under our royal hand and under the Great Seal of Canada, this 2nd day of June in the year of our Lord 2026, and in the 4th year of our reign.
The commission just read is the cornerstone of today's ceremony. This document, commissioning the Honourable Louise Arbour, signals the King's confidence and our collective pride in her appointment to the office of Governor-General and her ability to carry out this solemn duty. The Right Honourable Richard Wagner, Chief Justice of Canada, will now administer the required oaths.
La prestation des serments doit avoir lieu en présence des membres du Conseil privé du roi pour le Canada.
Place in the presence of the Secretaries of Canada. Privy Council official will now read the text of the oaths.
Vous, Louise Arbour, affirmez-vous solennellement que
do you
vous serez
solemnly swear
fidèle
that you will
porterez
be
sincère
faithful
allégeance
and bear true
à Sa Majesté
allegiance
le roi
to
Charles
His
III,
Majesty King Charles
roi du
III,
Canada,
King of
à ses
Canada,
héritiers et
his
successeurs?
heirs and successors?
Je l'affirme solennellement.
I so
Do
solemnly
you,
swear.
Louise Arbour, solemnly affirm that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of Canada, his heirs and successors?
I do.
Affirmez-vous solennellement que vous servirez
Do you
fidèlement
solemnly
et
swear
loyalement
that you will
Sa
faithfully
Majesté le
and
roi
truly
Charles III,
serve
en
His
qualité
Majesty
de
King Charles
gouverneur
III
général
as
et
Governor
commandant
General
en chef
and
du
Commander-in-Chief of
Canada,
Canada,
et administrerez la justice
and
de
that
façon
you will,
convenable
to the best of
et
your
impartiale?
ability, discharge
Je l'affirme
justice?
solennellement.
Do you
Yes,
solemnly
I do affirm.
that you will well and truly serve His Majesty King Charles III in the office of Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada, and duly and impartially administer justice therein?
I do.
Affirmez-vous solennellement
Do you
que
solemnly
vous
swear
servirez fidèlement et
that you
loyalement
will
Sa Majesté
loyally
le roi
and
Charles
faithfully
III,
serve
en
King
qualité de
Charles
garde du
III
Grand Sceau du Canada?
as Keeper of the Great Seal of Canada?
Solennellement.
I solemnly
Do
affirm.
you solemnly affirm that you will well and truly serve His Majesty King Charles III, in the office of Keeper of the Great Seal of Canada?
I do.
La gouverneure ainsi que le juge en chef,
The Governor
le Premier
General
ministre
Designate,
et le greffier
Prime
du Conseil
Minister,
privé
and Privy
procéderont
Council
maintenant à
clerk
la
will now
signature du
proceed
registre des
to the
serments.
signing of the oath book.
The signed oaths will be kept in the Privy Council Oath Registry as evidence that the new Governor General has duly taken the oath of allegiance and the oath of office on this day of June 8th, 2026. So, honored guests, Canadians across the country, it is my honor to present the Governor General of Canada, Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Louise Arbour. Son Excellence, la très honorable Louise Arbour.
Excellency Louise Arbour.
Veuillez vous lever, please rise. Veuillez vous s'asseoir, please be seated. In honor of today's occasion, Parliamentary Poet Laureate Chimwemwe Undi, a poet, lawyer, and editor from Winnipeg, Manitoba, wrote the poem Reasons, a piece that reflects on notions of identity, empathy, and human connection. Ms. Undi will recite her piece in English and is joined by Kobe Jean from École élémentaire publique Louise Arbour in Ottawa, who will read the French translation Raison. Please give a warm welcome to our poets.
Reasons. When it reaches for a country, the mind instead summons an illustration, perhaps a width of sky. This thinking an effort to transpose the abstract into a certainty to love. Modern transposition demands a sense of the world as a handshake deal, in which each hand took to the feel of the other hand's palm. Giving takes an understanding of the world as little more than that choice to hold on, to raise a reconstructed past under light and see each edge as an invitation. This way, easier to teach than travel, calls us to speak, to echo the silenced, to listen first, to understand, certain only that our good fortune is luck, not reward, a debt discharged with brief, erratic tender, life spent making this place mean something we are proud to signify.
Raison. Quand il aspire à un pays, l'esprit invoque plutôt une image, peut-être une portion de siège de travail, un effort destiné à convertir l'abstrait en garantie d'amour. La transposition moderne exige un accord convenu par une poignée de main où une paume s'est familiarisée avec l'autre. Pour donner, il faut comprendre le monde comme guère plus de ce choix de tenir, mettre un passé reconstruit sous la lumière et voir dans chaque suture une invitation. Plus facile à enseigner qu'à répondre, cette idée nous pousse à parler pour se réduire au silence, à écouter pour comprendre certain seulement que notre sort tient du hasard et non du mérite. Une dette acquittée par une monnaie brève et inégale. Une vie passée à donner à ce lieu un sens que nous sommes fiers de porter.
Merci, Chimwemwe Kobi. On behalf of His Majesty the King, the Governor General presents national honors and awards that recognize those people who have demonstrated excellence, courage, or exceptional dedication to service in ways that bring special credit to this country. The majority of Canadian honors are administered by the Chancellery of Honors, which is part of the Office of the Secretary of the Governor General. A newly installed Governor General becomes Chancellor of the Order of Canada, the Order of Military Merit, the Order of Merit of the Police Forces, and head of the Canadian Heraldic Authority.
J'invite maintenant le brigadier général retraité
Brigadier General retired Marc Cavillot, Secretary of Honors, and Sami Kavid, Hero of Arms of Canada, to present the Governor General the National Collars of Canada.
Le collier de chancelière de l'Ordre du Canada.
Chancellor of the Order of Canada collar.
Honoré d'accepter ces colliers.
Le collier de chancelière de l'ordre du mérite
The collar
militaire.
of the Military Merit Order.
Le collier de chancelière de
The
l'ordre du
collar
mérite des
of
corps
Chancellor of the Merit of Police Forces.
Et finalement, le collier
And
de chef de
lastly, the
l'autorité
collar
héraldique du Canada.
of the Heraldic Society of Canada.
I'm honored to accept these collars. Je suis très honorée d'accepter ces colliers.
The Great Seal of Canada is a symbol used on the most important state documents representing authority and authenticity. Used on proclamations and commissions, it provides the formal sanction of the Crown to these documents.
Le Grand Sceau du Canada existe
The Great
depuis la
Seal of Canada
Confédération.
has existed since Confederation.
Il a été remplacé
Historically,
chaque fois qu'un nouveau monarque accédait au
it is
trône.
replaced each
Le Grand
time
Sceau
a new
actuel a
monarch
été
accedes
conçu
to the
par
throne.
l'autorité
The Great
héraldique
Seal
suite à
was
l'accession
designed
du
by
roi
the
Charles III.
heraldic authority following the accession of King Charles III. It includes the image of the royal crown and is the symbol of authority, royal authority in Canada. A new tradition, this image will now remain unchanged and will serve all future monarchs. The text embossed under the seal will identify the name and title of the sovereign in French and English. I now invite the Honorable David McGuinty, acting on behalf of the Honorable Mélanie Joly, Registrar General of Canada, to present the Governor General with the new Great Seal. Minister McGuinty will be accompanied by the Assistant Registrar, Philip Jennings.
Je vous confie la garde du Grand Sceau du Canada.
I confer you with the safekeeping.
Great Seal of Canada. Thank you.
British Columbia multi-platinum artist Tyler Shaw will now perform Like Me and You, written by Rafi Kavukian and Debbie Joan Pike. This song playfully highlights themes of connection, empathy, and the universal bonds that tie us all together. Please welcome Tyler Shaw.
Janet lives in England, Pierre lives in France, Bonnie lives in Canada, Ahmed lives in Egypt, Moshe lives in Israel, Bruce lives in Australia. Ching lives in China, Olga lives in Russia, Ingrid lives in Germany, Gita lives in India, Pablo lives in Spain, Jose lives in Colombia. And each one is much like another, a child of a mother and father, a very special son or daughter, a lot like me and you. Koji lives in Japan, Nina lives in Chile, Farida lives in Pakistan, Zosha lives in Poland, Manuel lives in Brazil, Maria lives in Italy. Kofi lives in Ghana, Raheem lives in Iran, Rosa lives in Paraguay, Nija lives in Kenya, Dimitri lives in Greece, Sue lives in America. And each one is much like another, a child of a mother and father, a very special son or daughter, a lot like me and you, a lot like me and you.
Distingués invités, il me fait maintenant plaisir d'inviter le
I am
Premier ministre
pleased
du
to
Canada,
now
le très
invite up the
honorable
Prime
Mark
Minister of
Carney,
Canada,
à nous
the
adresser
very
la parole.
honorable Mark Carney.
Son Excellence, la très honorable
Her
Louise
Excellency,
Arbour,
the Right Honorable Louise Arbour,
la très honorable Mary Simon,
the Right Honorable Mary Simon,
Monsieur Whit Fraser,
Mr. Whit Fraser,
le très honorable Richard Wagner,
the Right Honorable
juge en chef du
Richard
Canada,
Wagner, Chief Justice of
ancien
Canada,
gouverneur généraux,
former Governors
ancien
General,
Premier ministre,
former Prime Ministers,
dirigeants autochtones,
Indigenous leaders,
distingués, invités.
and distinguished guests.
As Elder Verna McGregor just reminded us, this place holds history. As part of the traditional unceded territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples through time immemorial. As the start of the Rideau Canal, which transformed commerce during the 19th century. As the place where Canadian soldiers embarked for the battlefields of World War I, including Vimy Ridge, where many felt that Canada first became an independent nation. As the train station, where Sir Winston Churchill arrived to rally Allied support when the outcome of the Second World War hung in the balance. As the building where Canada's first ministers gathered for negotiations that led to the repatriation of our Constitution, the establishment of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the enshrinement of Indigenous rights within it. Des chapitres importants
Important chapters in Canada's histories, and they have been written here. Moments marked by sacrifice and leadership, moments that contributed to the building of our nation. Today, as the headquarters of the Senate of Canada, this building is the place where our decisions are debated and carefully examined and decided upon that will shape the future chapters of our history.
Throughout Canada's history, whenever the world's fortunes were threatened, Canadians have chosen to step up and assert ourselves as a sovereign, ambitious, and compassionate nation. We are once again living through one of those hinge moments of history, which is why A year ago, His Majesty King Charles came here to open Parliament, which is why respect for our institutions is vital, which is why we are each called to share each other's perspectives and work for our common good. Le comté d'aujourd'hui, Sa Majesté,
as of today,
aura une nouvelle
His Majesty
représentante
will have a new
au Canada.
representative in Canada.
Les Canadiens et les Canadiens, quant à eux, auront une nouvelle
Canadians,
commandante en chef
for their part, will have a
une
new
nouvelle
commander-in-chief
de l'ordre constitutionnel.
and a new keeper of constitutional
Aujourd'hui,
order.
la très honorable Louise Arbour,
Today, the Right Honorable Louise Arbour
31e gouverneur
has
général
become
du Canada.
the 31st Governor General of Canada.
La couronne est le fil conducteur
The
de notre
crown
vie
is
constitutionnelle.
the common thread through
Comme
our
Sa
constitutional
Majesté
life.
l'a affirmé lui-même dans
As
cet
His
ensemble,
Majesty has stated himself in these
fièrement
very
le Canada
walls,
aujourd'hui
it
dans toute
proudly
sa
symbolizes Canada
et son
today
dynamisme.
in all its wealth and
Governor
dynamics.
General is the guardian of our constitutional order, a symbol of unity, and above all, a steward of our commitment to peace, order, and good government. Canadians entrust the Governor General to defend our institutions, to uphold our core values of liberty, fairness, solidarity, and sustainability, to represent our ambition to build a stronger, fairer country for all. These duties call for sound judgment, deep learning, and an unwavering commitment to the rule of law, the very principles on which our new Governor General, Her Excellency Louise Arbour, has built her exceptional career. Son Excellence a occupé les
Her
plus hautes fonctions au
Excellency
sein
has
du
held some of
système
the highest
judiciaire canadien,
positions
y
in the
compris
Canadian judicial
à la
system,
Cour suprême du Canada.
including in the Supreme Court of Canada.
Pourtant, son héritage ne se limite pas au
However,
travail qu'elle
her
a
legacy
accompli au
is
sein
not
de la
limited to the work that she has done within the
Certaines de ses
magistrature.
réalisations les plus marquantes
Some of her
en tant
most
que
notable
juriste
achievements
se sont
as a
déroulées
jurist
en dehors des salles
have
d'audience.
taken place outside of
En tant
Canada's
que
tribunals.
haut-commissaire, elle a
As High
exhorté le
Commissioner,
système des droits de la personne des Nations Unies
she
à se montrer digne des personnes
led
prétendées.
the United Nations Human Rights
Elle a
Office
donné une voix
to a level
à ceux dont la
expected.
dignité était
She gave
bafouée.
voice to those whose
Les
dignity
personnes au
had been
pouvoir
trampled,
préféraient le silence.
who people would
At
have
every
preferred
stage
remain
of her
silent.
distinguished career, Her Excellency Louise Arbour has defended and promoted justice, dignity, and equality. In The Hague, where her work held the most powerful to account. At the United Nations, when she defended the most vulnerable. In Canada, where across academia, in our highest courts, and in public service, she upheld justice for all. Depuis plus de 50 ans, dans
For
toutes
over
les
50
fonctions
years,
qu'elle a occupées,
in
la
all the
très
positions
honorable
she has
Louise
held,
Arbour a toujours été
the Right
animée par la
Honorable
même
Louise Arbour has always been driven by the same conviction.
que pour qu'une
That is the
société
conviction
soit
that
libre, les
for a
institutions
society
de
to be
cette
free,
dernière doivent
the
être
institutions
tenues
of
de
that
fondre.
society must be held accountable.
Que ce sont les lois qui font le rempart
It
entre
is
les
the
plus
walls.
puissants et les plus
The laws make the walls between the most powerful and the most disfavored. The dignity of each human should not be randomly applied based on geographic situation, citizenship, or convenience. Canada's role in this world is to put those principles into practice and to help other countries do the same.
The Governor General is the steward of the values we cherish, of the democracy that we celebrate, of the Constitution that protects our freedoms and the institutions that promote them. In fulfilling these tasks, Her Excellency will represent the best of Canada to Canadians and to the world. A Canada that is a bastion of justice, security, and prosperity for all. A Canada that is a beacon to a world at sea. A Canada that is clear-eyed about the challenges that we face and steadfast in the values we uphold. A Canada that is not just strong, but good. A Canada that is not just prosperous, but fair. Votre Excellence, au nom du gouvernement
Her
du Canada,
Excellency, on behalf of the Government of Canada,
des Canadiennes et des
and on
Canadiens,
behalf of all Canadians,
merci. Merci
thank you.
d'assumer
Thank
cette
you
nouvelle
for
fonction
agreeing to take on
pour le
this new
bien
position
du Canada.
for the good of Canada.
Et maintenant, j'ai le
And now,
plaisir d'accueillir
I have the pleasure of
31e
welcoming
gouverneur
the
général
31st
du
Governor
Canada,
General of Canada,
la très honorable
the Right Honourable Louise Arbour.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I now invite Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Louise Arbour, Governor General of Canada, to deliver her address.
J'invite maintenant Son Excellence,
I
la
now
très
invite
honorable
Her
Louise
Excellency, the
Arbour,
Right
Gouverneur
Honourable
général du
Louise
Canada, à nous
Arbour,
adresser
Governor
la
General
parole.
of Canada, to give her first address.
Monsieur le Premier ministre,
Prime Minister,
honorable juge de la Cour suprême,
Honourable Justices of the
honorable
Supreme Court,
senators, ministers, and members of the House of Commons, distingués chefs et aînés autochtones,
distinguished leaders
dear
and
Canadians.
elders of Indigenous communities.
Je suis profondément honoré de
I am
me présenter
profoundly
devant vous
honored to be standing
Ces
here
lieux
before
ont
you
été
today.
érigés sur le territoire
These
traditionnel
places
de
were
la
built on the
nation
traditional
Algonquin
territory of the Algonquin
un
Anishinaabe
peuple
Nation,
fier qui prend
a
soin de
proud
ses
people
terres
that
et qui les
takes care
enrichit
of
de
its
sa
lands
culture
and enriches
depuis
it
des
with its
millénaires.
culture for thousands of years.
We are gathered here today in the Senate chambers, where careful scrutiny is applied to the laws that will shape our future. Comme la Cour suprême du Canada et
As
la
the Supreme
Chambre
Court
des
of Canada
communes,
and the House of
le Sénat
Commons,
contribue au
the
dialogue
Senate contributes
à
to
travers lequel la
dialogue
démocratie canadienne
through which
s'exprime.
Canadian democracy is expressed.
I want to thank Prime Minister Carney and His Majesty King Charles III for entrusting me with the opportunity to serve another great Canadian institution in this new role over the coming years. I also wish to thank the Right Honourable Mary Simon for her remarkable service. Her Excellency stood with Canadians through defining moments, from the COVID-19 pandemic to periods of economic strain and profound shifts in the global landscape. Her tenure as Canada's first Indigenous Governor-General will be viewed by history as both significant and timely. I admire the hand that Her Excellency has extended to all Canadians. She has reminded us that reconciliation is a lifelong journey that begins with listening and with empathy. Listening to voices that challenge our understanding of history, listening to Indigenous environmental and spiritual knowledge, deeply sophisticated, yet long overlooked. Listening to languages unfamiliar to many of us that have resonated from coast to coast to coast for centuries. And embracing a future in which First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples are no longer cast aside. J'ai pour ma part appris l'importance de comprendre le point
I
de vue
have
des
learned the
autres,
importance of understanding the point of view of others
qu'au cours de ma vie
through my
professionnelle.
education and through my professional career.
En fait, j'ai vécu à la
In
fois
fact,
le confort
I have
et
both
l'inconfort
experienced the comfort and discomfort of
J'ai
homogeneity.
grandi à Montréal dans un milieu
I grew up in Montreal
homogène.
in a comfortably
J'ai grandi
homogeneous
en
environment.
uniforme,
I grew up in a
exclusivement par
uniform
des femmes.
and was educated
Ma mère
exclusively by
et les
women.
religieuses de la
My
congrégation
mother
de Notre-Dame.
and the nuns of
Jusqu'à
the
mes
Notre
20
Dame
ans,
congregation.
j'ai été entourée
Until
de
the age of
camarades de
20,
classe
I
qui
was
étaient
surrounded by classmates
francophones,
who were all
blanches
francophones,
et catholiques
white,
comme moi.
and Catholic, just like me.
J'ai ensuite travaillé dans un autre milieu
I
homogène,
then went to work in another homogeneous environment,
anglophone et
one
masculin.
that was essentially male and
Et
Anglophone.
malgré la promesse que je m'étais faite à
And
20 ans
despite
de
the
ne
promise
plus
I'd made
jamais
myself at
porter
20
d'uniforme,
of never wearing a
j'ai
uniform
revêtu
again,
ma toge de juge sans la moindre
I
conscience
put on my
des
judge's
surprises que nous
robes
réservaient.
again without the slightest hesitation.
J'ai par la suite eu la chance inouïe de travailler à
I
l'étranger.
then had the wonderful opportunity to work abroad. I discovered the wonderful links and relationships we can build with people whom we might have nothing in common with.
Tant comme juge qu'au service de la communauté
I worked as a
internationale,
judge in the international
m'a exposé à une
community,
grande diversité
and this
de
work
perspectives.
exposed me to a wide diversity
Il en
of
va de même pour le
perspectives.
privilège d'avoir vécu
The
à
same
l'étranger.
thing goes for having had the privilege of living abroad and working in countries very different
J'ai
from
connu des
Canada.
régions marquées par la guerre et la pauvreté.
I went to regions marked by war and poverty, and where people aspire, like we all do, to live with dignity, in peace, and
Et
safety.
j'ai toujours été saisie par le fait qu'au
And I
fond,
was
tout est une
always
question de point de vue.
impacted by the fact that it's all a matter
I
of
remember
perspective.
standing outside the United Nations headquarters in New York in the 1990s, confronted with my own biases. I came across a group of Chinese tourists, and I asked a young woman about her impressions of New York. She replied, "It's so old." I was surprised, and then I realized that I had been projecting a story onto her, imagining her as coming from a civilization of centuries-old splendor and gazing at a vibrant city in a younger country. In reality, she was more likely born in futuristic Shenzhen or Shanghai, glittering metropolises of glass towers. So there I was, looking at New York, looking at her, and making assumptions. Perspective is everything. Je vois le Canada avec le regard de quelqu'un
I
qui
see
l'a connu
Canada
de
from the
près,
perspective
comme
of
de loin.
someone who has known it from close and from afar, but always with
Un
admiration.
pays qui n'a pas peur de se
A
réinventer.
country that isn't afraid to reinvent itself.
Notre avenir et notre projet commun.
Our future and our common project is a project that requires us to reconcile the multiple perspectives that shape our collective identity. We do not all share the same understanding of our history. We do not all share the same origins. We or our ancestors come from different regions around the globe. The people have always traveled. I'm thinking of Inuit family who have always been traversing the vast territory of the Arctic. And humanity has always sought to go further, to push the boundaries and to keep going higher, as our Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen did this year in going into space.
Comment ne pas être ébloui à l'idée que ses yeux ont
How
vu
could we
des lieux
not be
qu'aucun être
amazed
humain
by the fact that his
n'avait
eyes
encore
have seen something
Alors,
that
je vous
most
dis avec
human eyes will
confiance,
never see?
ne freinons pas
So I
notre
can say with
élan vers le
confidence,
progrès par peur de la
let's
différence.
not put the brakes on our project and our progress towards excellence out of fear of difference.
Extreme polarization is dangerous, but so is extreme consensus. It is through our differences and our fundamental right to express them that we will nourish critical thinking, creativity, and innovation. It is through our differences that we will build a common future. As Canadians, we have the extraordinary privilege of living in a mature democracy. We benefit from strong institutions that allow different views to be expressed. We must continue to protect the public space in which our national debates take place, from schools and universities to the media, to political parties, unions, and civil society organizations, from theaters, concert halls, and museums, to courtrooms and the floors of our legislative assemblies. The peaceful management of our differences is nowhere better expressed than in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Charter guarantees that our cherished individual rights are subject only to the reasonable limits that are necessary for life in a free and peaceful democracy. This is what it means to live under the rule of law. In an open society like ours, the purpose of law is not to restrain, but to construct a greater freedom for all. We have a constitutional and cultural framework that allows us to imagine, to explore, to innovate, and to experiment. Our humor is grounded in self-deprecation. We believe in leading as a team. We do not mistake humility for weakness, nor do we measure a person's worth by the thickness of their wallet. We don't think we are perfect, but we believe we're pretty well on the way there. We have a remarkable capacity to pause, to examine our failures, and to learn from them. And when we do, we seek to understand, not just to blame. And we know that we're not yet doing enough. Not enough for each other, let alone for the billions around the world who look at us with justifiable envy. Our country covers nearly 7% of the world's landmass and holds 20% of its fresh water, and yet we make up just 0.5% of its population. We have the talents and the resources that the world will need most in the decades ahead. And young Canadians are citizens of the world. They're well-educated with both deep climate awareness and remarkable digital literacy. And yet, not all of them are able to reach their full potential as they face the headwinds of inequality. In that, we are failing them, and it is our shared responsibility to correct course. The better we advance our common project to build a great future for Canada, the greater our influence on the world will be. And for that, our ambition must be bold and sustained. Pour propulser le Canada à la hauteur de son
drive Canada
potentiel,
forward and up to its full potential, we need to take on a new perspective that is both ambitious and confident, a perspective on ourselves and our place in the world. Some of you might remember the parable of the three masons. So a traveler runs into three masons working, and he asks them, "What are you doing?" The first answer, "I'm carving stone." The second replied, "I'm building a wall." And the third replied, "Me? I'm building a cathedral." I'm aware that sometimes it's difficult to feel like a stakeholder in the ambitious project of building Canada's tomorrow. Inevitably, we are all worried about things that go on every day, the demands from our children, colleagues, the cost of living. But each person in their own way is contributing to what Canada is becoming.
And so too is our influence on the world. Our expertise already positions us among global leaders in many fields, from ethical artificial intelligence to clean technologies, from creative industries to medical research. The new technologies at our disposal are more powerful than ever. They're highly attractive and widely accessible. But we must ensure that their convenience doesn't lead us to overlook the profound societal shifts that they are driving. With instant access to vast amounts of information, it's very tempting to pay little attention to the reliability of sources. The lines between knowledge and belief, between truth and falsehood, between facts and assumptions are increasingly blurred. AI could be threatening not only the way we live and work, but also the control we exercise over our own destiny. And yet these challenges are not insurmountable. If we remain vigilant, we could meet them with public institutions that remain trustworthy, a strong education system at every level, sustained investment in science, research and development, and with a private sector that upholds the standards of integrity that Canadians expect. Je tiens maintenant à m'adresser en particulier aux jeunes du Canada.
To address Canada's youth.
C'est aujourd'hui que vous commencez à construire le monde dans lequel vos enfants
you will be starting
grandiront.
to build the world that your children will grow up in. But your immediate task is to build yourselves.
Explorer,
learn,
rêver,
explore,
mais aussi
dream,
écouter,
but also
hésiter,
listen,
reculer.
hesitate, and
Vous
take a
avez
step
entre
back.
les mains,
In your hands, just as the generations that have come before you, you have tools that did not exist when your parents were born. So surprise us. And don't underestimate the chance you have to be growing up here, even though you might be, rightly so, worried by the big challenges of our times, the health of our planet, the unequal distribution of wealth, and the violence of armed conflict. But trust in yourselves. Canada gives you great freedom and enormous possibility.
The world is watching. It's watching the country that we're building together. Former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan often spoke of the three pillars of the United Nations: security, development, and human rights. And he always stressed that there can be no security without development, no development without security, and neither development or security without the protection of human rights. This is as true in Canada as it is everywhere else. As we undertake major initiatives to strengthen our economy and to strengthen our security, and to grow our economy, including in the Arctic, we must remain attentive to the rights of those directly affected, and we must always ensure a fair sharing of both burdens and benefits. Our collective security rests above anything else on the trust that we place in each other. Of course, I cannot speak of security without recognizing the vital contribution of the Canadian Armed Forces to peace, stability, and security, both around the world and here at home when there are times of great hardship. I recently came across a remark by General Jenny Calignan, Chief of the Defense Staff, who described the forces as long-standing exporters of security. I think today these vital efforts are being complemented by a renewed focus on defending our own vast territory. À nos membres en uniforme,
to our members in uniform, I would like to express my profound recognition for your service, your professionalism, and your commitment to excellence. I also support your families who share in the sacrifices required by this commitment.
I'm very encouraged to see recruitment efforts bearing fruit with more Canadians from diverse genders, backgrounds, and perspectives choosing to serve. Significant progress is also being made within the forces to foster inclusion with dignity. Building on a proud tradition of respect and honor, this continued modernization will, over time, strengthen effectiveness and morale. It will also enhance your capacity by better reflecting the country that you're called to protect. It's a profound honor for me to assume the role of Commander-in-Chief of Canada. À l'aube de mes nouvelles fonctions,
on the eve of my new functions, I am aware of the privilege I have been given to go out and meet Canadians across the country and to discover the wealth and richness of our ideas and ideals that guide them. I expect to be surprised and confronted against my own biases. Just like that day when a young Chinese woman made me smile, thinking that everything in New York was so old. It will be a pleasure to learn alongside you and reflect on the wonderful opportunity of meeting others. Once I am called to represent Canada outside the country or welcome foreign dignitaries here in Canada, it's this richness of the Canadian voice that I intend to express. In particular, I hope that I will be able to embody each and every day this spirit of empathy that is at the heart of our great project of reconciliation.
We can harness our extraordinary resources, the breadth of our talent, our collective know-how, and our boundless imagination. The world is watching us, not to copy everything we do, but to draw inspiration from a country striving to embrace the future with greater security, prosperity, and dignity for all. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Merci, Excellence. Thank you, Excellency. For the singing of our national anthem, I am pleased to invite the 2024 recipient of the Governor General's Performing Arts Award for Lifetime Artistic Achievement in Classical Music, soprano Misha Bruger-Guzman Lee. Veuillez-vous lever pour l'interprétation du
Please
O
rise
Canada.
for
Please rise
the Canadian
for the
national
singing
anthem.
of O Canada.
True patriots
honored guests, distingués invités, cette portion de la cérémonie se
This portion of the ceremony will conclude soon. In a few moments, Her Excellency and the official cortege will leave the Senate chamber. In the meantime, Ray Chablour will play the violin. She will play the Red River Jig, a traditional Métis dance accompanied by violin, often played during celebrations.
And with that, former Supreme Court Justice Louise Arbour has officially been installed as this country's 31st Governor General. We heard from the Governor General upon her installation, as well as the Prime Minister. You can see him exiting the chamber of the Senate as well, both of whom emphasize the value of Canadian institutions like the Senate building that they're in right now, and a host of other institutions, and the value of defending them. They had a lot more to say, and they will continue now outside of the Senate to make their way to the War Memorial, which is just about a block and a half away from the Senate. We'll be there live when they arrive there. The new Governor General will lay flowers. I believe I can head to my colleague, Michael Couture, who's right next to the Governor General as she makes her way through the foyer of the Senate. Mike?
Yes, she's walking by us right now. Everybody that is going by, and one of the things that I thought was super interesting, and of course, she is the Commander-in-Chief now of the Armed Forces, but she was also the person who led that review of the Armed Forces, and that's certainly a scathing report about recruitment in the Armed Forces, and so interesting to see that she included that in her speech, talking about how encouraged she was to see the recruitment efforts that are bearing fruits, fostering inclusion with dignity, and saying that this continued on the modernization, saying that it will strengthen morale, and it's a profound honor for her to assume the role of Commander-in-Chief. But as you're mentioning, that 20-minute wide-ranging speech, talking among other things about the ethical use of artificial intelligence in this day and age. Just last week, the Prime Minister unveiled their new AI strategy, and certainly a nod to that as well. And one of the quotes that stood out to me, Vassy, was how she said, in an open society like ours, the purpose of the law is not to constrain it, but to create a construct for greater freedom. So as you can probably see now, they are making their way up that grand staircase here in the Senate building, and we'll be heading outside shortly to the Cenotaph to lay that wreath. And we're expecting a number of the dignitaries to now follow out as they come out behind me, among others, the former Prime Minister Joe Clark, Adrienne Clarkson, and the former Governor General as well, and all the rest who were in the Senate for that ceremony. Vassy.
And I'm sure they'll be stopping rather to talk to you, Mike, and when they do, we'll swing back over to you. As Mike mentioned, the new Governor General, Louise Arbour, as well as a number of members of the procession, dignitaries like the Prime Minister and a host of others, are now making their way over to the War Memorial just behind me, where they will lay down a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, of course, acknowledging, as the new Governor General did in her speech, her capacity as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. I watched that ceremony, and you are watching, I should say, special coverage of the installation of this country's 31st Governor General, alongside the Ottawa Bureau Chief for CTV News, Graham Richardson, and former National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, current advisor to Faskin, Perry Bellegarde. A couple of things stood out. Love, Perry, to get your perspective, particularly starting with the Governor General's speech, which covered a lot of ground, as Mike pointed out, and didn't kind of shy away from the politics of the day, which I found interesting.
She talked about security, development, and human rights protection. She talked about our shared responsibility to deal with human inequality. She talked about, as well, the purpose of law, to construct a greater freedom for all. But what stood out for me as well, and her links to the King's priorities, like King Charles' priorities. She talked about the unequal wealth distribution, global conflicts, the war, but planet health, the health of our planet. King Charles always talks about sustainable development and
that very
protecting
well.
the
You know
land
him
and
very
water.
well. Yeah.
While Sustainable Markets Initiative, he's bringing together the private sector to deal with climate change. You know, in the 30 by 30 by 2030, the net zero, you know, by 2050. All these things are important. These are the King's priorities. Protecting Mother Earth. You can only do so much before the planet starts revolting, and you can see the wildfires, the big winds. So it's amazing that she talked about that in her speech. So there's a really good link there to His Majesty's priorities as well.
What impression did you have of the speech?
It was a meaty speech. Like it wasn't a safe ceremonial figurehead style speech at all. I loved the sense of humor reference too. Right? We're not perfect, but pretty close to it.
We're on our way.
You know,
Got a good laugh,
she seems and a clear-eyed view of the challenges. You know, I heard her talk about shared responsibilities for expansion, right? So you can't just put a pipeline in without consultation, without sharing the benefits as well as the challenges with those big projects. So I thought refreshing and totally in tune with 2026 and where Canada stands.
And if it's getting noisy for everyone watching while you're listening to us discuss things, it's because everything's getting set up behind us for the arrival of the Governor General, Louise Arbour, the Prime Minister, and a host of other dignitaries, including the Chief of Defence Staff, Jenny Carignan, who, as you could see in the ceremony, standing right next to the Governor General. She will be a big part of the ceremony that takes place here at the War Memorial at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. That's also where my colleague Annie Bergeron-Oliver is right now. Annie, what can we expect to unfold momentarily there?
Hi, Vassy. Well, as you pointed out, the Governor General is going to be walking here to the Cenotaph. She'll get the chance to give her first royal salute now that she is officially Canada's Governor General. She'll get the chance also to inspect the honor guard, to walk around, show them, her in this new role. Then, along with her two grandsons, she's going to be putting some flowers at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. They will play the last post. The Canadian Armed Forces Band will also be playing in the background. And there is expected to be another 21-gun salute. So this is a really lovely moment, a chance for her to kind of be in this new role as Commander-in-Chief, a chance to show her respect for the armed forces. You heard her talk about that in the speech. Mike talked about it, the fact that modernization will ultimately strengthen morale, the fact that she said she's very proud to see that a lot of reforms are being made, that there is dignity in being a member of the armed forces, that she has great respect for them. And she said that she, likes seeing a lot more diverse faces in the Canadian Armed Forces. And again, pointing out that as these changes are happening, this will only strengthen the Canadian Armed Forces and make them more reflective of Canada. So an opportunity here to kind of show off her position in this new role, a chance to thank the Armed Forces members and again give her first and second royal salute as Canada's new Commander-in-Chief.
And we were, I should say, just moments ago, as Annie mentioned, looking at two of the Governor General's grandsons who will accompany the Governor General and the procession over to the War Memorial. Behind me, a number of members of her family in attendance as well and kind of circling that area. That procession will get underway momentarily, but you heard Annie mention the remarks in the Governor General's speech about the dignity of serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. She, of course, now occupies the position of Commander-in-Chief in her role as Governor General. And my next guest knows a whole lot about the dignity of that profession. Romeo Dallaire is, of course, former Lieutenant General in the Canadian Armed Forces, former commander of the UN Assistance Mission for Rwanda, and a former Canadian Senator. General Dallaire, it's a pleasure to have you on our program today. Thank you very much for making the time.
I'm honored. Thank you very much.
I know your works are certainly intersected with the new Governor General's, particularly on the subject of Rwanda. What are you thinking about today as she is installed as this country's 31st Governor General?
I think that we've really, as she's indicated, achieved a level of maturity in our democracy that recognizes the depth that people can bring to official responsibilities in guiding the country into the very complex future that we are facing, which is nearly in a revolutionary state these days. And so only that depth of comprehension of not only Canada and the internal makings of a country that it has its diversities and languages and history, but also the world. She is aware that the world, the planet, the humanity have got to establish a sort of communion in order for us all to be able to not survive the future. I certainly didn't see survival in her statements. I saw far more thriving. I saw her perspectives of leaping into that future with confidence and letting the youth take their place, as they are the generations without borders, and they're ready, in fact, to master all that technology and to move us, I think, very progressively into the future.
It's interesting that you note that part of her speech, because as she said that, I thought of comments that you've made in many interviews we've done about the exact same thing, kind of the ability to feel optimistic in the future because of the youth versus kind of the level of challenge that we all face in the globe right now. Do you still feel that way, and do you feel like that was the right note to strike?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I have my institute have people in Africa, in South America, Latin America. We're opening out in the Far East. We see youth around the world looking to take on more and more responsibility, and able to do so because of the technologies that are made available to them, and that they're mastering them, and they're going to mature them as instruments to be able not only communicate, but also to bring logical advancement to their nations and coalesce in real time all of humanity. And so she's got the right angle to continue to encourage those of us who feel that Canada, yeah, we're going through a difficult time, a near revolutionary time, just like sort of I don't know, the Italian Renaissance nearly. But that's fine. That's a temporary phase as we build the momentum and consolidate our strengths and all that beautiful capabilities of a nation like ours to lead into the future, to be a leader, to be a reference point that we used to be a bridge between the big guys and so many other countries who look towards us as a reference.
Governor General Arbour, General Dallaire certainly presided over investigations into some of the worst atrocities this globe has ever endured or witnessed. What do you think she uniquely brings to this role because of that?
She will not be surprised and overwhelmed and held back in caution and fear of taking risks because she's seen it all. There isn't much that woman has not seen in the world, from the extremes of humanity in the positive sense to the extremes of inhumanity in the most horrific ways. And in my dealings with her, she's got a solid 2 feet on the ground. And so I think she will be a very significant advisor, reference, point of contact, and certainly a strong sense of leadership to the forces who are going to be in the front lines into the future of a very complex and demanding world and dangerous world. And so she will inspire the forces also. She'll inspire particularly, I think, the reservists, who are the reflection of our nation so much in every community and the full diversity of our nation. We are seeing that from the reserves, and they are the depth of the forces. And so I think that woman is the right person at the right time to be able to assist this nation advance in the future, not hold back, not fear of taking risks, not trying to survive what's going on, but in fact, to thrive and be a leader and to influence others and desire to bring others together. This is the most wonderful time.
I will leave it on that note, sir. General Dallaire, a real honor to have you share your perspective on our program today. Thank you very much for making the time.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Retired Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire there as we await the procession over to the War Memorial of the new Governor General, the 31st Governor General of this country, Louise Arbour. She will do so momentarily. She and the Prime Minister, you could see in the shot that just aired, were signing the official documents to make official, I should say, the installation of Madame Arbour as the Governor General. I'm going to swing over to Mike Couture, who's in the same building where they are, the temporary home of the Senate. He's got another former Governor General who was in attendance at today's ceremony next to him. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks for that, Vassy. Yes, joined by the former Governor General, as you said, David Johnston. Thank you so much for being with us. I wanted to know what you took away from Madame Arbour's speech when you consider how wide-ranging it was and everything that she touched on.
Well, first of all, this is a wonderful day for Canada, and we welcome a wonderful woman as our new Governor General. When you think about one of the great challenges in our world today as we speak, it is the fragility of the order of the rule of law and systems of justice and respect for individuals. And a good part of her speech was really devoted to our own Constitution and our values, but also the peace, order, and good government, which has been a predominant value of Canada throughout its history. And when you look at her career, I can't imagine someone who was better prepared to deal with reinforcement of the rule of law. And bear in mind, the rule of law is not to constrain people, it's to permit freedom and to ensure that we live peacefully with one another. Both domestically, she has been so involved in complex institutions that reinforce those values. And on the international scene, she is really admired around the world for her work in various venues that have to do with systems of justice and improving. And I thought her speech was one of great hope and challenge in the right sense of each of us as Canadians to say we have a precious country and we are blessed. And we're all stewards of that to strengthen it for all of our citizens, but to be a beacon to the world as well.
And one of the roles of the Governor General, as you know very well, is to promote that national unity. At a time when that might be challenged in a couple of provinces in this country, what do you see as her role and how she can continue to promote that?
Well, I think she will be constantly looking at our constitutional principles and reinforcing those and speaking about them. And of course, one of those is freedom of speech, which is for various people to have their different views. But the wonderful thing about Canada is throughout our history, we've avoided extremes. We've always found ways to come together with concentric circles of reinforced values, and I think that will continue to be the great promise. But I thought her speech, as well as the Prime Minister's, was really filled with a sense of the excitement of Canada as we work even harder to make this a smart and caring country for all of our people.
You're one of the few people who could give her advice on the role. On this first day, what would you say to her about cherishing this role and making it her own?
Yeah, well, I would say take joy in what you're doing and great pride. And you are so well prepared to provide some very thoughtful guidance and some reinforced to all Canadians, and to recognize that each of us has the great privilege of making this country even better for all of our citizens.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate your service to this country as well. Thank you so much.
An honor.
Former Governor General of Canada, David Johnston. I'll send it back to you, Vassy.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. That's our Mike Couture inside the Senate there, as he says, talking to former Governor General David Johnston. The other former Governor General in attendance today at the ceremony, Adrienne Clarkson, two former Prime Ministers, one of whom you heard just earlier on this show, Jean Chrétien, and then also former Prime Minister Joe Clark was in attendance. So we'll keep our eyes out for him. I'm sure Mike will be able to snag him any moment. There is the Prime Minister and his wife, Diana Fox-Carney, alongside, just ahead of them, Louise Arbour, the Governor General's two grandsons. They will accompany the new Governor General, that whole delegation, to the War Memorial, which is just a short walk from where they are right now. It's just behind me. In fact, we're about a block and a half away. They're exiting the temporary Senate building. It's the old train station here in Ottawa. The Senate, of course, relocated there because so much of Parliament Hill is under renovation, you could say, and will be for a number of years, so that will be home to the Senate for a while to come. And here is the new Governor General, the 31st Governor General, Louise Arbour, speaking to a number of the members of the delegation as she makes her way out of the Senate. She will then head over here to the War Memorial in her capacity as Commander-in-Chief. She'll be greeted by Chief of Defense Staff General Jenny Carignan as well. My colleague Annie Bergeron-Oliver is in fact just outside where all of this will happen. A number of different parts of the ceremony we're describing, Annie, including, as we watch the delegation make their way over, a 21-gun salute, the second of the day, in fact.
That's right. There's going to be another 21-gun salute, so it's going to get loud in the city of Ottawa. And there's also going to be an opportunity for her to inspect the honor guard, as well as just to walk around and sort of see what the cenotaph is all about today on this very special day. What's interesting as well, Vassy, is there actually are dozens of people who have lined up here. It's a very similar formation to Remembrance Day. The roads are closed around the cenotaph, and people have actually lined up here. Dozens and dozens of people have been here now for about 40 minutes, hoping to just catch a bit of a glimpse of Louise Arbour, the new Governor General. And that was actually the same thing this morning. There was probably about 50 to maybe 100 people who were lining up outside the Chateau Laurier, hoping to get a glimpse of her as she was walking in. So clearly there is some attention and a lot of interest in the Governor General, that people are coming out during a work day, just to try to get a glimpse of her, to see her. She will get the opportunity, along with her grandsons, as you pointed out, to put a flower at the tomb of the unknown soldier, a very important symbol of remembrance, and a sign of respect, especially in this new role as Commander-in-Chief. So it's a very short kind of 10 to 15 minute event here at the Cenotaph, and from there she'll go back to Rideau Hall, her new home, as well as her new office. Vassy.
All right, thanks, Annie. And there is the Governor General, flanked by her two grandsons on either side. Right behind her, the Prime Minister and his wife, Diana Fox-Carney. They're all making their way here. Just behind us, in fact, to the War Memorial. Graham Richardson and Perry Bellegarde are sitting alongside me. Graham, it's kind of touching that, just as Annie was saying that, I turned around. There are so many people out here. We were speaking on the walk up here. Would there be, when the King was here a number of months ago, it was jam-packed. But I'm kind of encouraged that so many people even knew this was happening.
And, I don't know if that goes to the notion that what the Prime Minister has talked about, what the Governor General hinted at, the challenging times Canada is in, and the fact that this, of course, differentiates us from the United States. By the way, the grandson's looking very sharp there. Come on. Big deal for them, eh? To be walking with the grandmother and the Prime Minister. And I just thought, like I say, whether it was a practical speech. It set her out, I think, on course to deal with some fairly substantial things. And how about Romeo Dallaire? There is not much this woman has not seen, both the worst and the best. And there she is greeting some of the public.
She's right next to us at the very moment, Perry, and she's talking to people. And this is kind of a shot that doesn't show you, but behind us you can see just how many people have lined the streets. It's not a tiny crowd. There's a lot of people out, and I think that's really a really positive thing. They want to get to see our new Governor General. She's walking up the street here now, and it's one of public service. When you think of the Governor General, it's the highest public servant. And you're a servant of the people. In Cree we have a word, Vassy Kapelos. You're a helper or servant of the people. And whether you're a chief or a prime minister or a governor general, you're a servant of the people. And we want to lift her up and acknowledge her for accepting the role. And with her experience and her background, everybody's feeling she's going to do a fantastic job. With all the challenges within Canada, but even globally, she's going to be a strong advocate for human rights, just a strong advocate for the King's priorities of the water and the land to be preserved for future generations. It's just amazing. And she's just coming up the street now, and everybody's excited. You can just feel it. You're watching special coverage of the installation of the 31st Governor General of this country. There she is, Louise Arbour, just meters away from where we sit outside of the War Memorial. She'll make her way there right now alongside the Prime Minister, and those two young men next to her, those are her grandsons. Perry, Graham mentioned, and this definitely hit me too, when General Dallaire talked about, you know, they obviously intersected on the issue of Rwanda and the genocide that took place there. She investigated other atrocities. There's no other word for it. And just the fact that, you know, he remarked how grounded, you know, how her 2 feet are situated on the ground despite seeing both the best and the worst humanity has to offer. What did you make of that?
Well, again, she made the comment earlier on about everybody can benefit from things, but share the responsibility as well. And when she has that experience of seeing a genocide, you know, like she's seen, and she's got that empathy, but then she also has that ability to take it into her heart and spirit and deal with it and find a way through it and make recommendations so these things never happen again. And her strength of character is shining through.
I think we have a little audio here as the new Governor General and the Prime Minister greet both members of the RCMP and the armed forces. So we'll listen into that for a moment. The Governor General now making her way to the front of where the ceremony will take place at the War Memorial. Again, the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's wife with her for this part of the ceremony, as well as 2 of her grandsons who accompanied her from the Senate, where the original ceremony, I'll call it, took place. Let's listen in as this takes place. The new Governor General right now doing something called inspecting the guard. She is doing so and then will acknowledge the band playing, of course, comprised also by members of the armed forces. And following that, she and her two grandsons will lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier on behalf of the people of Canada. The Governor General serves many functions, but one of them, and one of the most significant, is as Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces. She is there alongside Prime Minister Carney and his wife Diana Fox Carney and a number of other members of the official delegation. The RCMP is also represented here. And I will point out that you would have seen a flag at one moment on top of Parliament Hill. Today, the flag of the previous Governor General was lowered, and then I should say the flag of the Governor General was lowered, and then as soon as Louise Arbour was installed, it went up again, essentially to signify the installation of a new Governor General. Louise Arbour becomes this country's 31st Governor General. There have only been Canadians occupying the role, if you can believe it, since 1952. She represents the King, the Sovereign, right now in this country. I'm here with Perry Bellegarde and Graham Richardson as we watch all of this unfold. The last time, Perry, we were watching this ceremony take place in the same way was actually when the King was here. Not too long ago, a number of months ago, where people also lined the streets to watch all of it unfold. What has struck you so far about this part of the program?
Well, again, when the King was here, he came to read the throne speech, right? And he has that power to discuss and talk about the sovereignty of Canada, you know, and at that time we were referred to as the 51st state. And so I think he really was powerful in bringing us together and pushed that up. Now, from what I see here with today, there's still a sense of excitement. There's a sense of hope and inspiration with Louise Arbour being our next 31st Governor General of Canada. We always say, you learn from the past, you don't live there, and you provide more hope and inspiration going forward to build a better country. That's what I sense, and that's what I feel here.
It's interesting because we have been talking about the context with Alberta and Quebec, but the bigger context is, of course, what's been going on with the United States, Graham, right? As Perry mentioned, right? This sort of threat to our sovereignty, economic or otherwise. Ceremonies like this, roles like that, almost take on a whole new meaning.
I think they do, and I think they're more important, Vassy, when you have the leader of the free world saying you're not a country, saying, you know, you're not worth anything. It sent a chill up people's spines. People couldn't sleep. It was very, very unsettling, and it remains unsettling. And so what do? You lean into the strong institutions that you have, and the Governor General is part of that, regardless of partisan politics. No matter who was Prime Minister, I think the response would be similar. And the other interesting part of her time will be that reinvestment into the military. We need new fighter jets. Those were really loud flying over us.
Felt low and louder than normal,
low
in fact.
And louder. Yeah, and so, you know, as the Commander-in-Chief of Canada, she will play a significant role, obviously, and she mentioned in her speech, you know, rededicating ourselves to protecting our vast country. And, you know, just a year and a half ago, the notion that, for instance, the subs decision would be mere weeks away. You know, there's been an acceleration of the urgency on that file. And again, as Commander-in-Chief of Canada, she will play a role, and I'm glad she mentioned it, because I think a lot of Canadians think it's about time.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, that her role as Commander-in-Chief does come at a very unique moment in time for the Canadian Armed Forces. If, in fact, that investment all materializes, it will be different than any other era, certainly that we've lived through. Annie Bergeron-Oliver is right there in the middle of what you see unfolding on the screen ahead of you as the new Governor General greets various members of the Canadian Armed Forces. She soon, alongside the Prime Minister and her grandsons, will lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Annie, what can you tell us from your vantage point over there?
Yeah, that's right. So they're just getting set to lay those flowers now at the wreath of the unknown soldier. And what I can tell you, or the tomb of the unknown soldier, what I can tell you as well is that her daughter, Emily Taman, is just behind as well. She's here with her husband, Michael Spratt. As you pointed out, she's here with two of their grandsons. And so one of her daughters is here to watch. And so, you know, this really is a big moment, and the crowd is still seeming to grow. It keeps seeming like more and more people are here. As you pointed out earlier, as she was walking here, she actually was able to stop and talk to some people along the road who had come out just to try to see her. So, you know, this is a very important day for a lot of reasons. And for the armed forces, this is a big transition, obviously, from Mary Simon to Louise Arbour, the new Governor General and the new Commander-in-Chief. Also, a really interesting role that she plays. We've talked about this a lot, that she was responsible for coming up with the Arbour report, more than 48 recommendations on ways to modernize and change the Canadian Armed Forces to make it stronger, especially when it comes to things like sexual misconduct and making women feel more involved and included in the Canadian Armed Forces. So this is a very interesting time for her now, years later, to be taking over this role. Jenny Carignan as well, who's the Chief of the Defence Staff, she was sort of tasked with implementing many of the recommendations that Arbour made about the Canadian Armed Forces. Now Carignan was in this new role as well as Commander-in-Chief.
And we'll listen in live as this part of the ceremony and the laying of that wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier takes place. And with that, Governor General Louise Arbour, flanked on either side by her two grandsons, lay their flowers at the tomb of the unknown soldier here in downtown Ottawa at the War Memorial, right in the heart, actually, of downtown Ottawa. That brings to a conclusion the ceremony to invest Louise Arbour as the 31st Governor General of this country. Perry Bellegarde, Graham Richardson, watching alongside us all morning. Perry, your final thoughts on what took place?
I think the right person at the right time for a job for our country. You know, again, in her speech, she talked about security, development, human rights protection. She talked about our shared responsibility to deal with human inequality. She talked about the importance of our planet and the wealth of the health of our planet in terms of our water and our lands and the unequal wealth distribution and dealing with the global war conflicts. She brings all that wealth of experience. And we just lift her up for stepping up to the plate for public service for all of us. And so I think she's the right person at the right time. And we just, again, pray for a safe journey, a good, healthy journey for her and her family. And I'm excited about the possibility, the hope and inspiration she provides us.
A large crowd gathered here for this moment. Right now, you can almost hear a pin drop during that part of the ceremony as she and her grandsons lay a wreath there. Graham, your final thoughts on what's taken place?
I just think in 2026, Vassy, it is perhaps easier to dismiss ceremonies like this and positions like this. And I think generally the public, as you see, she's examining the medals of a veteran. I think the public is embracing these roles and these institutions more vigorously, given the challenge Canada's faced. It's something to hold on to. It's part of our tradition. Down through generations, connected through communities. And clearly, given that speech and given her demeanor, the sense of humor and also the weighty nature of some of the things she has dealt with in her life, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting term for this Governor General.
Yeah, a position not free from scrutiny, but certainly one with a lot of significance at this moment in time. And you see there the Governor General's flag now sitting atop Parliament Hill to signify the installation of a new Governor General. And a mix there, as you can hear from the Canadian Armed Forces Central Band, of a little bit of God Save the King and a little bit of O Canada to really represent truly what the Governor General stands for as the King's representative in this country, but of course also as a symbol of Canada. She is there alongside members of the Armed Forces and the RCMP, and then here shaking the hand of Prime Minister Mark Carney, who appointed her just over a month ago. In fact, that announcement was made. And here next to the Prime Minister, his wife, Diana Fox Carney, the Deputy Commander of the RCMP, as well as other officials from our National Police Force. We're going to leave our special coverage of the installation of the 31st Governor General there. It's been a true pleasure being with you all morning. I want to thank my colleagues, Annie Bergeron-Oliver, Mike LeCouture, and of course my wonderful co-panelists for their excellent insights, Graham Richardson and Perry Bellegarde. We're going to have continued coverage throughout the afternoon, reaction to the ceremony and the speech from both the Prime Minister and the Governor General. I look forward to seeing you at 5 o'clock Eastern on Power Play. Thanks very much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.